Hello and welcome to Resist 47. This is my channel in which I'm going to talk about the activities of the Trump administration, the second Trump administration, things that I see as threats to our rights, the rights of others, and things that we can possibly do to make a difference. So if you come here from my BookTube channel, Bookish, thank you for coming over. Hopefully you'll subscribe. If you're new here, hopefully you'll subscribe to get one regular person's perspective on what's going on. So one of the things I think that I've seen from a lot of people, where they have big channels, big podcasts, who are opposed to Trump's presidency, is there's a lot of despair, there's a lot of hand-wringing, there's a lot of anger and frustration. And I'm not saying that any of that is misplaced. I just don't think that any of that is particularly constructive. So I wanted to start off this video by just talking about what we as regular people can do. Now, the truth of the matter is that outside of voting, which the American people did, outside of voting, our ability to influence or to affect the outcome of the political process and the governing process is somewhat limited. And there's no doubt that a lot of the guardrails that people talk about existing in our democracy that would prevent one person from gaining too much power and acting in an authoritarian way, that a lot of those have been stripped away. But there are still things we can do, and there are still, I think, signs for hope that we can resist that which needs to be resisted and move forward and get to the next election cycle, and hopefully then democracy will restore itself to where it needs to be. So one of the things I wanted to remind you of is that they're still counting votes, and what seemed like on election night an overwhelming Trump victory, in which not only did he easily win the Electoral College, which he certainly did, but he was going to win something around 52% of the popular vote, that really isn't true. They're still counting votes on the West Coast. They still have about 20% of their votes to count in California. And one of the things that's becoming increasingly clear is that Trump's popular mandate is not nearly as big as the prognosticators and the pundits and the talking heads would have you believe. Now, they're not going to go back and correct this perception. They're going to keep talking about Trump's mandate. But projections right now suggest that Trump will end up with less than 50% of the popular vote. Still by far the most popular votes of any candidate in the election, and still legitimately elected President of the United States. I'm not arguing any of that, but one of the things to hope, I think, or one of the reasons why we can hope, is there's so many of us who are opposed to Trump's policies. In the end, with Harris voters maybe coming in around 48.5% of the popular vote, plus the votes of those who voted third party, you're looking at less than half the American people chose Trump and his policies. And that is a sign for hope. When you think about other authoritarian regimes that have taken over, that replaced democracy, none of them did it when they were facing 50% or around 50% opposition from the people. And that's important. That's important because we do still have power. We do still have influence. And if we just, as long as we don't, submit in advance, throw up our hands and say there's nothing we can do, there are still things that we can do. So one of the things that I would encourage you to do, based on hopefully this hopeful knowledge that, a huge chunk of us, if not most of us, don't want what Trump wants, is to begin taking action. And this can be small things. You don't have to go out, and face down the tanks like the guy at Tiananmen Square did. We're not at that point yet, but you can still have some influence. And one of the things I want you to do is I want you to think about targeting, with phone calls and emails, your senator now, or one of your senators, or maybe in some states both your senators. This is particularly true if, like me, you are a blue voter in a red state. I live in Texas. Texas has two senators. One of them is Ted Cruz. The other is John Cornyn. I don't see that there's any use in me, writing to Ted Cruz or calling into Ted Cruz to try to get him to do anything remotely like I want him to do. Because, he's gone full MAGA, and he is going to be a Trump loyalist to the end, or at least until he decides it no longer benefits him. And either in this video or a future one, I hope to get to that. But John Cornyn, while a Republican, while probably voting with Trump, 97% of the time, is also a person who is more of a traditional conservative. And I believe that people or senators like John Cornyn can be influenced to, at the very least, maintain the guardrails that would allow Trump to become a full-blown authoritarian. So, for instance, this week I've already written John Cornyn to talk to him about trying to oppose the appointment, perhaps, of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services, giving him power over things that, in all honesty, he should not have power over. And by the way, if you think that Kennedy coming in and deregulating things and getting rid of regulations on health and human services in the Food and Drug Administration is going to make our food more pure, I just invite you to go back and look at the purity of food before the FDA existed, because that's not what's going to happen. But I've written about that. Trump has a plan, and this is one of those terrifying things I think I've seen Trump talk about, a plan to create a new military review board which will allow him to remove high-ranking members of the United States military and replace them with other members who are loyal to him. This is a direct threat to our democracy. There's nothing else that Trump has done or talked about to this point that is as great a threat as this. Because if he gets generals in charge of the military who are loyal to him and not to the Constitution, then we have an actual problem. So I've written to Cornyn about that. And what I hope is that if collectively we bring enough pressure to bear on these kinds of senators, particularly Republican senators who are not full-blown MAGA, who believe in democracy, who want to protect the institutions that exist in our government, like the Senate, that we can get them to block and to oppose the worst of Trump's plans. The absolute worst, like this military plan. So, if you have a Republican senator or any senator of, either party, no matter where you live, let me encourage you to call or write their offices and to bring pressure to bear, particularly when they come back from the recess. Calling will likely be more effective. But to then put pressure on them to oppose the things that need to be opposed. This is not pie in the sky. They're going to suddenly reject Trump and not do any things he wants to do, but just to encourage them to do the minimum to protect our democracy, to keep us having elections, to prevent the military from becoming an arm of MAGA. That's one of the things I think we need to do and we need to focus our attention on. So, that would be an action you could take. I would also suggest that you find charitable organizations, politicians at the local, state level that you can donate money to or work for or give encouragement to continue doing the good things that we do. You might think about donating more to local food banks. You might think about donating more to local shelters. You might think about donating more to organizations that are there to defend immigrants from arbitrary government deportation, things like that. These are things that you can do. And while they may not seem like a lot, and it may not seem like enough, they are something. And if then you are motivated to do more, by all means go out and do more. But one of the things that will prevent evil from taking over the United States is if the people who oppose evil continue to be good people and continue to act in an ethical way and continue to expect the law and our rights and the Constitution to be respected. So, don't give up hope. Find organizations you can help. Find ways where you can have your voice heard. And just adding, even if it's just an accumulation of voices saying, don't do this. Do something like that so that you feel like you're doing something positive. And then, be ready to react to the things the Trump administration wants to do and that they try to push through Congress. Because even though the Supreme Court has granted the president immunity from prosecution, that doesn't give him the power to just make law. This is one of those things I think that we are confused about. The president can't just make law unless Congress allows him to. And I know there are 47, maybe 48 Democratic senators who are going to oppose him, and it only takes, 3 or 4 Republican senators to stop him. And that's really one of the things I want us to focus on and do. So, do that. Take time for yourself. Read good books. Read for relaxation. Read for edification. Read for education. Whatever it is. But find a way to act. And find a way to act which makes you feel like you're making a difference and which cumulatively I believe will make a difference. Anyway, there you go. There is my first video for this channel, Resist 47. Let me know what you think. Please think about subscribing and continue to watch this content as we go forward. And I look forward to your comments in the comment section below. As always, thank you for watching.